Slaptail Squad, assemble.
All right, it is the Slaptail Squad, and I am here with my number one. It's just him and I.
Hey!
I
didn't miss my cue this time.
No, you didn't. You did a really good job. Before we get rolling, let me say this to the listening audience. It may seem like the Ronz annoys the shit out of me, but that is part of our persona, and he does not annoy the shit out of me, and I enjoy talking to him. And I hope that doesn't ruin anybody's impression of me, because maybe a lot of people listen to this just so that they can hear me yelling at the Rons. But it is our characters that we do. I do not really actually personally find the Rons annoying. He's doing a part of this podcast that is his job is the harder part of the hardest job. Don't you think, Rons? Really, honestly,
I don't know. It sounds like you're sucking up. So someone.
No, I'm not sucking up. I'm honestly speaking
Yeah.
from an entertainment standpoint. Do you feel like you have the harder part? Do you have the harder job, or what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where it works well together. I mean, sometimes there's a character on Family Guy, Meg, that's the lightning rod, as they say.
Cool.
That she's the butt of every joke. Yeah, she's the butt of every joke. But when Seth MacFarlane said, "Why is Meg always picked on?" and he put it simply that the writers don't know how to write for her, so they just make it happen. And I think that's how it went. And I figured that's what's going on here. I am the butt of every joke because we don't know how to write for me. It's like, and you need a lightning rod. You need a good guy, a bad guy, or that one person to be off. All right. You've got to be the villain sometimes instead of.
Well, I don't think you're the villain, though. I don't think that. Dude, I don't think that the listeners sit there and go, "Oh, poor," I don't think that they're sitting there going, "That Ronz is a dick." I think that they might sit there and go, "That poor Ronz. He is subjected to all this. That poor simple-minded Ronz.
Yeah, the simple-minded Ronz.
Himself to the abuse from the rest of the Slaptail Squad, whenever they're available, whoever happens to be torturing him at the time." So I do want the listeners to know. I also don't want them to think that. Obviously, don't want them to think that I'm making excuses either, or to say that the Rons and I are acting, because it's not acting. Obviously, we're just having fun.
It's all improv to a point.
But they should not think that the Rons is that I can't stand the Rons. He's playing a very difficult role. Mine is pretty easy. I just get to get angry at everybody for the stupid shit that they say.
What, did someone leave a message or something? I'm not saying
that. No. Does that also? I wonder if that also means that I have taken on the role of being the superior person in the podcast. Does that mean that I'm the evil dictator of the podcast? I wonder.
No, you are hypertensive, because if things don't go your way, and of course,
hypertensive. You mean that my blood pressure goes up? Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's what it sounds like, because I've actually explained to a few close personal friends that know you and me. I'm like, I tell them here are the ground rules, right, of the podcast, right? And when I screw it up, you let me have it, right? And it's like, oh, but that's so hilarious. And actually, I said, okay, did you listen to this week's podcast? And once again, a couple of friends of ours, my wife listened to it, and another friend of ours listened to it, and they just really want to know what your obsession with duck dicks were. They just couldn't understand that.
But have they researched duck penises themselves? There's no obsession there. It's just really interesting because the majority of birds don't have genitalia. That's
but the thing is, it sounded like an obsession with it that I couldn't explain. Right?
I don't think it's an obsession. I was just trying to make it. What I was trying to understand was why wasn't everybody else interested in the fact that there is a species on this planet, or a classification, which is, you've got mammals, you've got birds, you've got reptiles, et cetera, et cetera. You would expect there to be some sort of a continuity. That's why that's why I was floored when I found out that ducks have penises, because the majority of birds don't. And if you looked, there's only, 3 birds basically that have penises, and the rest don't. So it's like the ostrich, it's the ostrich, it's the duck, and it's the goose, and the rest don't. That's why I thought it was interesting.
But with that said, Seymour Butts, of course, whoever that person is,
you give him
the Beaveman's obsession with avian porn is quite disturbing. But hey, everyone has to have their fetish. Fitting that he's married to someone who he has dubbed the Swan. Now, I didn't make that connection too much. Makes sense now. Yeah. Apparently, whoever Seymour Butts is, they're actually listening. So that's so cool. And I did not make that connection with the Swan being avian, or if I did, I forgot.
Well, the reason the Swan, that nickname is a shared nickname. She calls me Swan, I call her Swan.
That's so cute.
So we've done that for a really long time. The reason why we do that, it actually has nothing to do with birds. It has to do with a movie.
Pray tell, what is that movie?
It's Billy Madison. So when Adam Sandler's, he's Billy Madison, he's taking his bath, his maid says, now go upstairs with your fine ass and take a bath, because he's supposed to have that dinner with his dad and all of his dad's colleagues or whatever, the people that worked with him.
Okay.
And he's sitting there in the bathtub and he's going, I'm shampoo is better because it cleans the hair. I keep the hair nice and clean. And this other one, he's like, conditioner is better. I keep the hair silky and smooth. And so he's fighting with the shampoo and the conditioner. And then all of a sudden he stops. And then he looks at his faucet that's shaped like a swan. And he's like, stop looking at me, Swan. Or something like that. That's why we call each other Swan. And we have for years. But of course, I call her Swan more than she calls me Swan.
So it's not this... No, affectionate pet name.
It is not. I really don't even give a shit about birds in general.
Oh,
not my favorite animal.
You do some really good impressions, I might add. You really, really do.
They were so much better when I was young. When that was like one of my hobbies, was doing impressions when I was a kid.
Really? So what's your best impression?
I don't have any good ones anymore because I stopped doing them a good 20 some years ago, which I never should have stopped because I was actually fairly decent at it, and now I can't. It's very sad.
I don't know.
I have been working on my Ronz impression though.
Oh, let's hear that.
Now, of course, it sounds nothing like you. It doesn't sound like you at all, but it's my idea of you because you're a character. The Ronz is a character, and so my idea of how the Ronz should talk is like Cliff Clavin from Cheers.
Well, all right, so let's hear it.
But that's not how he sounds. Obviously, you guys can hear him. That's not how he sounds. But
of course, but let's hear what you have to say.
I just imagine that the Ronz in all of his life situations, like we talked about, if there's a situation and Ronz needs to act, let's say that Ronz is walking into a drugstore, for example, and perhaps he notices that some 4-year-old is trying to steal a piece of candy. He might walk up to that 4-year-old and go, "Hey, man, it's Ronz here, black belt. I see you taking that candy right there, young man. You might want to put that back there. Don't make me have to use some of my martial arts skills on you. Because I am a black belt, as you noticed from the black belt that I'm wearing around my waist right now."
That's more Jim Carrey.
No need to bother with him, officer. I've got it covered. I'm Ronz, black belt.
That's more Jim Carrey, if anything.
Community volunteer. Thank you very much.
That's Jim Carrey. And I would never approach a kid stealing candy. I'd get somebody else involved.
Just saying in general, should there be some sort of a situation that necessitates the Ron stepping in and showing that he is indeed a black belt?
Yes, I am a martial artist. Right. I was going to try and not mention that, but okay.
Speaking of the importance of having the Rons and how key he is to the organization, if you will, I'm sure that most people know, listening to the podcast, that I work, obviously, pretty long shifts. Just worked this morning, and I have a long commute, an hour there, an hour back, so it kind of sucks. And for some reason, also, I decided, because I hate my job, that I was going to take a college course this semester. I do have a doctorate, not tooting my own horn. But,
no. Not that you like. Also in the podcast, you say you don't like to talk about medical stuff, but you talk about a lot of medical stuff.
It seems to be brought up. The point is the reason why I'm taking this class is because although I do have a doctorate, I do not have any education as a teacher in the civilian world. I am actually an instructor certified in the U.S. Army, but of course that instruction is a little bit different. And so I'm taking this class to learn how to do some teaching in a college level course. So I've got that going on also, which is a kind of a pain in the butt. I've got a bunch of crap that I have to do. But the priority in my life, other than my family, of course, is the podcast. But sometimes I don't get a lot of time to do anything.
I think that was, I'm going to double back on what you said about being in the military. When I was in the military, I didn't need to have a hazmat license to drive big equipment around. You get out, you know how to do all this stuff. You now need to be licensed in what we call the world, right? You need to know how to do everything, even though you don't need to go, you've been trained to do it. That was a pain in the ass, because when I got out, I thought about, I could drive a truck. It's not too hard. And then you realize you got to go through school, all the hazmat stuff, hazardous material protocols and that. I'm like, but I know that. No, you don't. You don't know the civilian world protocols. So I found that a bit annoying. Did you find that annoying when you got out to the real world?
Well, no, because my skill set was different. So there is no job that matches the skill set of what I was trained to do in the civilian world.
Even as a
unless you become a mercenary or something like that.
Well, no, you were a medic.
No, I wasn't. No, after all this time, do you still not know what I did in the Army?
I thought you were a combat medic, the way you made it sound.
No, I've never made it sound like that. When did I ever make it sound like that? Dude, I was a scout on a scout team and an infantry paratrooper. You can listen to all the podcasts and they all say the same thing. I never once did they say I was a medic. I didn't do any medic stuff. Infantry. We've talked about that a bunch of times.
All right, fair enough.
Went completely over your head. Now I'm going to yell at you because you fucking weren't paying attention.
I was, but once again, I think I heard what I wanted to hear. My mistake. I will go back and re-listen.
Absolutely not. It was not a medic. Infantry paratrooper. My first 2 years, I was in a long-range surveillance unit as a scout radio telephone operator. And at one point, I even got to be the assistant team leader for a very brief period of time. Ooh, that was fun. Not really. So, too much responsibility. Anyway. So what we've decided to do today is, because Ronz is very good at arguing and getting yelled at.
Of course.
I'm going to bring up some topics, and I'm going to say what I believe about them, and the Ronz is going to have to refute, or he's going to have the opposing opinion and be a complete ass. What do you think about that, Ronz? Can you do it?
I can. In fact, one of the subjects you brought up, what we're going to do is psychic surgery. Now, I did give it some thought, even though we were texting back and forth before the show. I was actually I've known about this for years.
You've actually been a psychic surgeon?
No, but I've known about this for years.
Oh, so do you want to explain it then? If you've known about it for years?
Yeah, it's basically where it's a pseudoscience medical fraud in the eyes.
Well, now wait a minute. Don't just start calling it fraudulent. Just explain it for what it is.
Okay, for what it is.
How about explaining? Okay. Explain it from the perspective as if you were a psychic surgeon or someone who would like to have psychic surgery done.
All right, I'm going to try that. Hopefully I can. So basically, you come to one of these psychic surgeons, and they perform surgery without medical stuff, I should say, if that's the key I'm looking here. And they enter your body without an incision and pull out the sickness or the evil.
I did that last night to my wife without an incision.
Okay, awesome. I'm pretty sure the Swan would agree somewhere along the lines with that. So anyway, you pull the stuff out, whatever it may be, and you show it to them. And
here, look at this.
Yeah, exactly. Then they look for an incision or wherever you put your hand into their body, and it's miraculously not there. You're healed up. So the sickness is gone. The incision or insertion area is healed up like it never happened. But there's a lot of blood, and there you're holding some sort of tissue, whatever it is, pulled out, and it looks gross.
It does look gross.
It does. Now, being the person for this, the one thing that I took away from it is something that we touched on a few podcasts ago, back a while, and you said, why would I go into one of my wife's doctor's appointments with her, right? Because you said, why is everybody coming into these offices, with their spouse when they only need one? And I thought, that's a good point, but the counterpoint was to be supportive. What are you doing?
I'm adjusting my light. Please
Why?
continue.
No one can see you.
Totally listening to you.
No one can see you. Why are you adjusting your light? It's like, I need to look good for the camera. So anyway, I was thinking.
I'll get to my point, but I'll get to my point about that after you say what you're going to say. Go ahead.
No problem. So anyway, I thought maybe these people are dying and it's their last hope, right? This is all that they know. They want to be better, right? So to give them, and it's a false hope, but it's what it might be able to trigger an immune response to the body, right? Kind of like a placebo, right? And when you say the word itch, how many people actually scratch, right? When you yawn, how many people actually yawn that aren't tired but yawn?
You see that video that elephants mimic their owners or their friends when they yawn, and they yawn too?
No, I have not.
Cute. Of course, I don't know that people should be friends with elephants because a lot of people get killed every year by elephants, but hey, whatever you want to do. You ever see that video where that guy gets shit on by an elephant and like dies because they shit so much? I don't know if it was real or not, but whatever.
You watch a lot of animal porn.
No, it's not. How's that animal porn? See that? Look, that's where your mind goes. That's not animal porn.
Okay.
No, my point with bringing too many people into the office is it has nothing to do with support. You don't need to bring your spouse and your 4 kids into the exam room with you when you're the one who's there to be seen. If your spouse is off right then and has 4 kids, maybe your spouse could sit in the car with the 4 kids.
Shit in the car.
Not come at all. Not come at all.
Well, once again,
and during the
it's for moral support.
And you also have to no. And the other thing is, during the pandemic, you're not supposed to come in contact with 50 million people, and you're definitely not supposed to do that to the person who's providing you care.
I agree to a point, but what if
but
it's bad news?
That's a mandate to slow the spread of the pandemic.
Oh, I understand that, but what if it's bad news? Do you want to be there?
That's a totally the majority of the time, Ronz, it's not bad news. Do you think that 90% of my day I'm delivering bad news to people?
I don't know.
No.
Almost,
it's chronic conditions is not a death sentence. You know how often I'm actually telling people, they're like, yeah, this is really bad. You got cancer or you're going to die. There's not every fucking day.
Yeah, but not everybody is also, and this is where a lot of the psychic surgery comes in. Not everybody is as strong-willed as you. This is why my profession is allowed to progress as a psychic surgeon, right? If everybody was as strong-willed as you, I would not have a job.
I'm not even talking about that. All I'm talking about is people coming in the exam room, and I'm trying to clarify a situation. The situation is we're in the middle of a pandemic. You don't need to bring 4 people with you to your appointment when you have a sprained thumb.
It could
no, it can't. And it's a mandate right now not to bring a bunch of people to a medical office. The only way you're supposed to bring them is if they're your guardian, like you can't get around without them or whatever, or you're a parent of that child. Otherwise, you're bringing too many people in contact with other people, and you can spread the problem. It has nothing to do with psychic surgery. I'm talking about in general. That's why, and it's not even that. You say where people are coming for support. No, they're coming like it's a social function. You don't see it from my perspective. You're only seeing it from yours.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Which is something I don't think.
Look at it from my perspective. I saw 35 people yesterday. That's how many patients I saw. That's not how many people I came in contact with. I probably came in contact with almost 60 people yesterday that I didn't need to. 35 that I needed to see. The rest I didn't need to see. So why do I need to come in contact with all those people? If I'm coming in contact with all those people every single day, different people every single day, what's the chances that your doctor is going to get sick and die because you keep exposing him to people you don't need to expose them to?
I understand that too. I really do. So as far as my wife was concerned, I waited out in the hallway, right? And I still had a mask on, but I was there in case once again there was bad news, and I figure I understand what you're saying though. I really do. It's like a lot of people. So there are certain people that don't need to be there, right? As far as me as a spouse, yeah, I wanted to be there for support in case it was
Yeah,
bad
that's fine.
news.
But I'm also saying don't. Again, you're not seeing it from a standpoint. A lot of people treat going to the doctor like it's a social situation. There's a good percentage of people that I see every day when I go to work that don't need to be seen. They're coming because it's fun for them. They just want to talk about bullshit. I'm like, okay, well, get a social group, have a friend or something because you've actually just taking the visit away from somebody else. Like they want to talk about everything in the world other than what they're there for. And what they're there for takes like 2 minutes. And you're like, okay, well, I get 15 minutes. That's it.
Okay. I know when I go to the
doctor. It's a shitty profession, and it's not. I can understand where people want to talk. I'm like, but it's really not. That's really not what it's for. You know what I mean?
No.
Anyway, the Ronz has explained it. He's all for it. No, seriously. So basically, what you're saying is people who are really sick and or not so sick, they go see these people, and they perform quote surgery on them, pull shit out of them, and say, "Hey, you're cured."
Yeah, basically it.
So if you want to see some really cool videos, you can see lots of cool videos on YouTube of people doing this. You can also see some videos on YouTube of people showing you how it's done and how you can do it and prove that it's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, I've seen the videos there too, and I always thought it's.
But in your opinion, those videos are erroneous and that it's actually true shit.
In some sort of way, it can be. If I'm going to play the bad guy, it can be. Do I necessarily think it's good? No, because it's. I don't know where to go with this. I really don't.
You're very bad at arguing for psychic surgery.
I know because I know
you've already failed. You've already failed.
Yeah, I've already failed
at being good at this.
I've already, and that's the thing is when you look at it, there are some things that you just know are just bad, and when people. It's there for a reason. I just think people want help, but they don't know where to go for it. Whoa! What did you?
My screen with the Ronz so that he can see some psychic surgery.
Oh, okay.
Here's a really good clip from The Man on the Moon, the Andy Kaufman story. Have you seen that? Did you see that a long time ago when it came out?
I seen parts of it.
There's a really cool scene at the end.
Once again with Jim Carrey, yeah.
There's a really good scene at the end where he goes to have psychic surgery done because Andy Kaufman decided that would be his last-ditch effort to save himself, apparently. And this scene at the end is really good because you can see that the psychic surgery is bullshit, and he can see that it's sleight of hand and realizes that they're performing some bullshit on him. I don't know if that's actually what happened to the real Andy Kaufman or if that was the movie part of it because they're like, well, psychic surgery is bullshit, and we can see how it's actually done. And probably we assume that Andy Kaufman knew it was bullshit, but he didn't realize it until he saw them do their little sleight of hand crap. And then he's like, oh, fuck, I fucked up.
Yeah. Well, he knew he was going to die. And knowing that, that was going to happen. I mean, it was the last ditch effort. I mean, at some point, your mental capacity just decides to give out, and you're like, anything to save your ass.
I have a really funny story about psychic surgery, though.
Oh, please do tell.
So we all know that, we don't know, but for our listening audience, psychic surgery, the Beaveman thinks it's a bunch of bullshit. Basically, people with last-ditch hope are putting their faith in these fucking morons who are going to go and have them lay down, and they're going to miraculously pull shit out of their stomachs or chest or whatever cavity that they might have, their ass maybe, with a big pile of blood, and all of a sudden they're going to pull stuff out. You know what they're pulling out of you? They're pulling out like chicken guts, plastic bags. I saw one where they pulled like this big long glob of hair out of this lady. I'm like, oh, come on, shut the fuck up. Anyway, there is a guy that was pretty famous for this and was even on like Oprah and all kinds of shit. And his name is, what do they call him? John of God or some bullshit like that. But the funny story is this. This guy made just a bazillion dollars doing this. And he was on, like I said, Oprah and seeing all those different things. And of course, it's a bunch of bullshit. But he made so much money off of doing it So I used to work with this guy who believed in all kinds of bullshit because he's a fucking moron. And he told me that he went to go see this guy. And of course, in my head, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You went to go see a fucking psychic surgeon because he thought, and he really believes this, he thought that this guy could, I think it was heal his diabetes.
Okay.
And so he goes, seeks this guy out. But of course, when you go see this guy, there's a shitload of people going to see him. And of course, he makes money doing all this good stuff. The funny thing, why can't I fucking find this guy? This is actually giving me the saint. I want the real guy. I want the psychic surgery. There we go.
Okay, got it.
So he goes to go see this guy, and he tells me about it. And of course, in my head, I'm like, whatever respect I had for you, it's totally fucking gone because clearly you're a fucking moron. I can understand believing some shit, but seriously, you're going to believe that shit when it's... So anyway, here's the funny part. Years later, I'm looking at psychic surgery and laughing about it because what a moron this guy was to go and... Here's what... He didn't get picked to be fixed because, I don't know, the stars weren't aligned that day or whatever, and that's why they couldn't pick him to fix him. So, he came back not fixed. But what's funny is if you scroll down and you look this moron up, right, this Hayo Defaria, also known as psychic surgeon, it says convicted sex offender.
Wow.
He was arrested multiple times, but in 2018, 2019, he is now in jail for 63 years. So that is pretty fucking funny. So yeah, all you fucking morons that went to go see this guy, and it says he was making $10 million a year.
Jesus.
But
maybe I should go back into it.
Not even close to Jesus. Not even close. But this is what you do. When people, we did an episode before, I think this was Doc and I did this, where I said that these people basically sell hope. It's like sell cow shit as hope, because that's basically what you're getting. You're getting this shit as hope. Now, I'm not going to say that science can answer every dilemma, because it can't, and there is a little bit of a placebo effect, but not with this. Come on, I mean, it's sleight of hand. You can watch a really good video. Also, I think it's on how to perform psychic surgery. So if you want to learn how to do it, you can actually do it and be a little fun trick for you that you can show your friends.
Yeah, I pulled up a list of to have people show you how it's done. Penn and Teller do a good job of it as well, right? And the thing is, it's used to scam basically the people, the low-minded people, and those who have no hope left, right? What do you do? How do you do it? And what are your tax breaks for this? Do you file under as a medical procedure, or do you?
What do you mean? You think your insurance is going to cover it?
Well, it's like, it's one of those alternatives.
Just tell me what my copay is, and I'll knock that out. No, I'm pretty sure that is not covered by insurance at all.
Okay, well, it should. I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen?
There's lots of things that are covered by insurance.
I'm not familiar with insurance.
Well, like chiropractic care is not even covered by a lot of insurances.
Why? Do they consider it a BS thing?
It's up to the insurance. Some insurances classify it as in the same category as some of them classify it as chiropractic care, and they'll cover it. Some classify it, they put it under the generic heading of physical therapy.
Okay.
So sometimes you can get it covered that way, but in general, chiropractic care is not covered by insurance, and most chiropractors don't take insurance, they take cash.
So I got a question for you, because you're in the medical field. What do you consider a pseudoscience or a pseudo-medical medical bullshit area?
Medicine.
This, of course, being one of them, but
medicine in general.
Medicine in general. In what way?
Well, if you really think about it, right, the medicine that for the most part, medicine that is given to you is designed to either block something that the body's doing or promote something that the body isn't doing. You can kind of think of it that two ways. That's basically what it is, really. So your body's not doing something, and we want it to do something, or it's doing too much of something, and we don't want it to do that. So that's kind of what, generically speaking, that's what medicine does. And medicine is, Western medicine, in my opinion, is all about treatment of cure or decreasing the problems that you experience as opposed to trying to prevent them.
Oh.
So you don't, and that's it's the mindset of most of the people in the country anyways. Why would I go see the doctor if I'm not sick? So people only go see them when they're sick. But what you should do is go see them so that you don't get sick. And the doctors, nurse practitioners, PAs, whatever, should be trained to prevent illness and to treat it, but mostly to prevent it.
So you would think that with all our technology and with all our advancement in the medical field, that we would be less dependent on some of the medical stuff out there, some of the drugs. Do you think that's considered a pseudoscience as well?
What, pharmacology?
Yeah.
No. I mean, pharmacology is at least based in science, but again, it's looking at genetic markers, looking at these things that the body's doing, looking at things it's not doing, and then those medications interact at whatever cascade it is genetically or whatever hormone cascade it is or whatever. So it's all science. It's just what's the focus on the science in general. Kind of like when I was talking about it, you said, you're like, oh, you're a scientist. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm a technician. Somebody told me that this is what I do for this. That doesn't make me a scientist because what am I doing to further research? I'm not doing anything to further research. What am I doing to further treatment? Nothing.
Well, once again, I would disagree with that.
Yes, well, you're wrong.
Yeah, I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
But that's my opinion. All right.
So once again, the Ronz has done a very bad job of being a advocate. So how about this one? Let's go right on to my favorite one, the flat Earth. I say that the Earth is indeed round. And a very good way to determine that, of course, is one, not being a fucking complete moron. It's pretty easy to know that the Earth is, of course, round. A lot of people will say, hey, when I stand here and I look out on my lawn, it doesn't look like it's round. If I look to the horizon, it doesn't look like it's round. It still looks like it's flat. So clearly, the Earth is flat. It doesn't matter what anybody says. And if you look at the pictures from space, it looks like it's a circle. It doesn't look like it's a ball. Well, obviously, because we get pictures in 2 dimensions, but whatever. Okay. What say you about the people that like the flat Earth theory?
If you make it very difficult for me to take the opposite end of this. You really do, because as someone who studies astronomy as a hobby, right, and who looks into the nebula in the night sky and just been awed by it, you're trying to say you take the point of the Earth is flat, and I've flown halfway around the world, right? I've climbed mountains, right? I've gone, in the ocean, right? One of the seas, I can't remember, but you're asking me to take.
I've got one of those seas.
One of those seas. You're asking me to take the moron side. I'm trying to be.
Fine, then you pick an argument that you want me to say that. Fine, we'll do the opposite.
But if I had to say,
it's so good at arguing before, but now you can't argue anymore. You can't.
Well, no, I can argue why.
Whenever I bring up something that's a straight topic, you always say something fucking stupid.
You're right.
That is clearly counterintuitive, which means you're playing the devil's advocate. Okay, but yet, when I'm giving you these complete softballs, like, dude, go with it and be a complete crazy fucking moron. You can't do it. This is sad because basically what this means is that you've completely choked. And you can't even do.
No. If I had to say why the Earth is flat, you have to give me concrete proof. If I were to disbelieve everything that's been shown to me, I would have to say, prove to me that the Earth is round, because I can only see a straight horizon with bumps in the middle, let's say, of hills and buildings. Everywhere I go, the Earth is flat. I I've yet to fall off the edge because I cannot find the edge. So maybe the Earth runs forever, right? As far as we know, right?
That whole idea is completely stupid, though. Also, because well, I mean, seriously, who hasn't been up in a tall building? All you have to do is go up a few stories, and now you've actually changed the ratio of your height to, the length or the depth of the Earth itself, and you can see the curvature. It doesn't even have to be that tall of a building. The reason why you can't see that the Earth is round is because we're not freaking 500 feet tall.
Well, genetics might be one day, but right now I'm just thinking, if I had to play the devil's advocate, the reason it's not that you can't see it is because God doesn't want you to see it. It doesn't exist, right? We think heaven is straight. We never say it's round. So I would have to say that way.
That's bizarre. What do you mean that we think heaven is straight? What do you mean?
Well, have you ever heard of a gay alien or a gay angel? No.
You're talking about sexuality. You said straight.
I did. I was throwing you.
Now I'm confused. What are you talking about?
Why the Earth is not flat, or why the Earth is not round. So honestly, I've never seen a point where the Earth was round. I've only seen it from space, and it looks like a coin to me. Right. So I don't know who came up with the idea that it was round, though. Maybe Copernicus or Galileo, but I don't know where it came from.
I don't know either. But if you just to think about it in general, it doesn't make any sense to think that the Earth was flat in the first place. But again, we weren't raised that way, so I guess you can't understand how they would think. It's too hard to go back in time. Because what in nature is flat? Flat. Ooh. That which is flat is made by man, just like straight lines are made by man.
No, not necessarily.
There's no perfectly straight lines in nature.
Look at striations in rock formations.
Not perfectly straight lines.
How do you know? Is that what they tell you to know?
Because everything we've seen so far, there's no straight lines in nature.
Okay. I think that's what they want you to know.
If you look outside at a tree, it looks fairly straight, but it is not a mathematically straight line.
Oh, no.
Straight lines, man-made.
Okay.
And women-made, not just man-made. But you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know.
No straight lines in nature. Nature is imperfect in its shape and form, which is beautiful.
Oh.
But in general, right?
Suck up to nature.
But again, once again, most everything is obviously there's a reason why we think about the circle of life, because most everything that we encounter is in an irregular shape or some sort of a circle.
All right. So speaking of
square trees, right? There's no square trees in general.
That's not true. That you can make square trees. You can
would that be happening in nature or man-made? And if it did happen in nature, that would not be the norm.
Well, you're right. So speaking of bizarre things, by the way, and I'll segue that. I had a friend of mine, and I will call them K. Came up with a crazy conspiracy theory.
Now, is it a conspiracy? So you have to differentiate what's the difference between a conspiracy and a conspiracy theory.
Because honestly, wow, hit me out of left field with that one.
Well, it's true that when people talk about conspiracy theories, in my head, I'm like, are you talking about conspiracy or a conspiracy theory? Because there's two different things.
Yeah,
and I find a lot of times that people, when they talk about, quote, conspiracy theories, they're actually talking about conspiracies and not conspiracy theories.
Okay, this is a conspiracy theory.
Perfect. Right? What is it? Hit me.
So, that said,
my conspiracy theory is that Ronz believes he has a friend. Go ahead.
I do. So with the pandemic that's been going around, and we're so slow to fix it, someone pointed out that
that's being generous. We're a little slow fixing it.
We're a little slow to fix it, but the reason we have that slowness is to thin out the herd in the United States. Right? Yeah. Someone said, what if we were to get rid of all the minorities? How could we do it? A pandemic. And then we get rid of the elderly, right? So there's a lot of your population. And this conspiracy theory was so bizarre, I thought I would bring that up to you.
Okay,
say,
but that's a okay. So what's the conspiracy?
well, that would explain why we are so slow to fix everything, right? Everybody knew about the pandemic, right? Everybody knew about it, but they chose a blind eye to it, right? And you have to wonder why. Now, one of the theories is big pharmacia, right? They make money when people are sick. It's no big secret there. But if you cure the people, there's no money in health.
Okay,
Right?
well, having said that, though, if you're talking about big pharmacy, they're not making any money off the pandemic.
Yeah, they are.
No, they aren't, because
Yeah, they
there's
are.
no. Okay, you explain to me why you think that they're making money off of it.
Well, one, they've got to get government research grants, right? So they're getting probably grants for that. Number two, they need test subjects. So they're going to, anybody who's sick and whatever, so they're going to get a lot of subjects out there for free, right, to do trial basis. Once they get a patent, or if it works, then they're going to release it and make a lot more money. No one's going to do this for free. So they're going to get big bucks for it somewhere along the line.
Okay, so I'm going to shoot holes in your theory right now.
Don't. All right,
yes,
go for it.
I'm going to go ahead and do that. There is no money, and there was no money in the pandemic until recently.
That you know
because of. No. Because you can't say that I don't know of, dude, because I'm frontline prescriber. So I do know there was no medication for us to give to treat it. So therefore, there was no medication being prescribed. So there was no money being made.
That you
now,
know of.
No, I do know. That's what I just told you. You're not listening.
I am.
You're not going to make money off of medications if there's no medications being prescribed for this illness. Where you can make money is later on down the road when they say, oh, well, maybe this will work. And then you can sell your idea. Or somebody comes along and says, hey, can you make a vaccine? There's only so many companies that can make vaccines. So when you say big pharma, no, the major pharmaceutical companies are not making big money off the pandemic because nothing's getting prescribed. If you have COVID-19, what do you think I'm prescribing to you? There's no treatment. I'm telling you, go get Tylenol. You know how many companies make acetaminophen? Lots.
Once again, they're making money off of that.
No. You said Big Pharma was going to make a lot of money. They're not. Most people have Tylenol at home. So you're not making a big amount of money off that. If they came along and said, hey, this is it, like with Tamiflu, right? Tamiflu was the main flu medicine that you use, Oseltamivir. Okay, yeah, that made a lot of money because if you get the flu, you catch the symptoms within 48 hours, you get diagnosed with the flu, they prescribe Tamiflu. There's one point in the year for a few months that Tamiflu can make a killing, make a lot of money. Okay, great. That would be the case if there was something for COVID-19, but there isn't. I've used so many different treatments for it that Big Pharma is not making a lot of money off of it. They're going to make money, the companies that are manufacturing the vaccines that don't even work, those are the companies that are going to make a shitload of money. But there's only so many of them.
But as playing devil's advocate, that's what you know versus what other people think they know.
Well, of course. I mean, obviously, there's going to be, they say it all the time, all the money that they're giving to these companies to try to make vaccines. Well, we're going to give this company over here, I don't know, $50 million to produce a vaccine that we don't know if it works. But in the off chance that it does work, by the time we can administer it, they will have already made, 100 million doses. But if that vaccine doesn't work, we just paid them this many $1 million to make a vaccine that we're never going to use and will be destroyed. Here's my question. If we're paying that much money,
okay,
kind of like when they gave the money to the financial, the relief, the COVID relief package or whatever, right?
Okay.
And they gave all these millions of dollars to the airlines, and they gave people $1,200, right?
Yeah, I do believe
the
you're
amount
right.
For the millions of dollars that they could have gave everybody like $1 million in America instead. And people were so excited about $1,200, and you're like, wait a minute, you do know that if they give over $300 million out to all these industries to protect them during the pandemic, there's 330 million people in the United States. You could have gave everybody in the United States $1 million, and you would have had a better outcome than bailing out large industries. But everybody got excited about $1,200. I'm like, why are you excited about $1,200? They could give you $1 million.
Well, some people don't have that much, so they would get excited about getting anything.
I would have rather had $1 million than have them bail out the airline industry.
Well, once again, what are you going to do? I think it's
conspiracy. Look it up really quick. How much money so far has the government given to all these industries in comparison to what they gave the American people?
Honestly, I don't know.
But it's crazy in general. If you gave, right, I mean, just math, right? They didn't give $1,200 to every person in America, right? They gave it to adults. Or if you were a family like us, right? If you and your wife are married, maybe you got.
I would hope I'm married to my wife.
You and your wife got $1,200 for the two of you. If you were single, if you guys weren't married, you would have got $1,200 apiece. So in other words, if you're already a family, your family gets $1,200. If you're an individual American, you get above the age of 18, you get $1,200. So it's not like they gave out they didn't give 330 million people $1,200. They only gave it to the adults. And like I said, if you're in a relationship married, you only got $1,200. You didn't get $2,400 or some semblance thereof. So they still paid a pittance out to the adults of America, but they gave millions of dollars to industry. Why? Oh, so that they could keep paying you guys while you're off. Yeah, but you could have gave that directly to the people instead and gave them $1 million, and they wouldn't have had to worry about getting their $15 an hour paycheck. It's all stupid. It's all goofy. But nobody thinks about it that way.
Why would they? All they see is the dollar signs.
$1,200. Exactly. They're like, oh my God, I got $1,200. And what's really funny is their other reasoning on it is, let's give $1,200 to stimulate the economy. But then they got pissed when people saved the money. Well, they saved the money because they're scared that they're not going to have any money.
Well, yeah. Plus, I mean, when they have to get that medication for COVID, it's going to be expensive.
Yeah, and well, the other thing with that is, if you really want to get into it, you're playing your devil's advocate thing. Let's say that they because Trump says we're going to have he originally, not too long ago, he said we're going to have it in a couple weeks, the vaccine.
Mm-hmm. This is the same guy who said the pandemic didn't exist.
Right, but then what was it, yesterday? He said that it wasn't going to be available till 2021.
I have no idea. I didn't follow.
Anyway, so if you have all these vaccines, does it really matter? Because who's going to get the vaccine? Are you going to get it?
I don't know.
Are you going to get it?
No, most likely.
Let's be honest. I'm a big advocate in general for vaccines because it is obviously, in my opinion, that is good medicine. That's taking a substance, letting the body have its immune response to it, letting us build antibodies to build protection. That is a natural way of treating oneself. Okay.
On that note, what do you think of the anti-vaxxers saying that, coming out, who are probably going to come down with COVID and will refuse an antivirus or a vaccination?
I was getting to it, but you just interrupted me.
Okay.
My point was, when we talked about who's going to get the vaccine, I was just building my support for vaccines. However, I'm probably not going to get it.
Why?
Because the fastest we've ever come up with a vaccine is 4 years. Okay. And even when you release a vaccine, it's going to be, you don't know, you use it in a subset of the population, which is supposed to be representative of the entire population, right? Okay. I mean, really, if you took 30 people and you did a trial with 30 people, statistically, that should still represent the population itself. But even with medications, when you do all these clinical trials, and it takes years, and then the FDA approves it and all this other stuff, even after you've released it, there's always outliers. So that's why some medications get pulled, even though they've made it through all these trials and everything. 2 years later, you're using it and you're like, holy shit, this stuff has been happening. This has been happening, but it didn't happen in the clinical trials. We got to pull this med. That happens a lot.
Well, it also leads up into a question that I've seen recently, which drives me insane, is why do they advertise all this pseudo drugs, in my opinion, and say the side effects may cause blindness and erectile dysfunction. Take at your own risk. What the hell is with this shit? Why are these commercials on? Right? Like there's a commercial lately that has no common sense to me because it's a question about narcolepsy or something like that. Well, first of all, it shows a mom falling asleep. I don't know what parent that hasn't been fucking stressed out at some point, not falling asleep when their kid is awake, right? If you're a parent and you're a stay-at-home parent or you're a working parent and you're falling asleep, right? It's understandable. And then what teenager doesn't fall asleep on the bus ride home? They're exhausted. They're up at 6 a.m. going to fucking school, right? Doing all the shit that they need to. Then they get on the bus and ride home, right? And they're falling asleep. And the bus driver's Bob, Joe, whatever, you fell asleep on the bus again. No shit, right? My kid used to fall asleep on the bus. It wasn't because he was narcoleptic. It was because he was tired. He was a teenager. I think they're so wrong. These common sense things.
But what they do is they do the commercials so that you relate to them in some way, and they make it look like it's a common thing. What they don't tell you, obviously, is what the actual diagnosis of narcolepsy is and how you have to be diagnosed by it and what it actually entails. Basically, if you have narcolepsy, you can. I'll tell you what the test for narcolepsy is. The test for narcolepsy is a 2-day test. Okay, the first day.
Well, for our listeners, what exactly is narcolepsy?
Narcolepsy is a neurological disorder that causes you to fall asleep basically for no reason whatsoever. You're just very excessively sleepy, and it doesn't matter the situation, you can fall asleep. There's different levels of narcolepsy, and there's also cataplexy where you fall over and you're sleeping, which is also fun. Now, there's also idiopathic hypersomnolence, which means super sleepiness. Idiopathic means we don't know why. Okay, a lot of people have that. So in order for diagnosis of narcolepsy, they do a screening test. It's just a little piece of paper, and an Epworth sleepiness scale. You fill that out, and they're like, oh, okay, this person's already sleepy, whatever. The first part of your sleep test for narcolepsy is a sleep study. It's just a regular sleep study. They hook you up to a bunch of electrodes. Looks like you're going to turn into Wolverine, but unfortunately you don't wake up being Wolverine. A bunch of electrodes, a bunch of stuff stuck to your head. And then they say, okay, now you got to fall asleep with all this shit stuck to you. Now, if you have sleep apnea, narcolepsy, or whatever, you're probably going to fall asleep. That's day one. Day one, okay? They don't wake you up or anything, let you sleep. Day one, okay? That's night one. So you sleep for like maybe 9 hours, okay? Wake up in the morning. They leave all that shit on you. You get to have breakfast. And then they say, this is what they do. They keep you awake for about an hour. And you just slept all night. You're awake for an hour. And then they say, okay, take a nap. Okay.
So how does that diagnose narcolepsy if they're telling you to go back to bed?
Yeah, let me tell you.
Okay.
Explain this to you. You lay down to take a nap. If you have narcolepsy or idiopathic hypersomnolence, despite the fact that you just slept 9 hours, you are awake for 1 hour approximately, you will fall asleep. They let you sleep for like an hour or whatever, maybe. They wake you back up, talk with you a little bit, do whatever, and then they say, take a nap. If you have narcolepsy, you're going to fall asleep. And what they do is they just keep doing that basically throughout the, I think it's like 5 or 6 hours throughout the day. Now, I could be wrong. It's an idiot podcast, but I do know this is basically how they do it. Now, what they do is not only you're thinking to yourself, well, you're like, well, if I really tried, I could probably fall asleep. Yeah, you probably could. The thing with people with narcolepsy and idiopathic hypersomnolence, they fall asleep fast. We're talking less than, then they average it out. How fast these people fall asleep? It's usually less than 2 minutes.
The average human falls asleep in about 7 minutes, so okay.
But this is all, they've already slept all day. Then they just took a nap. They wake them up for a while, and they say take a nap, and they do it consistently over and over and over again. If you don't have narcolepsy, you don't have hypersomnolence, you're not going to keep going to sleep. You're going to lay there. You're not going to fall asleep.
I just find the commercial pretty much stupid, playing on the fears of just anybody in general, back to like the psychic surgery would, right? It plays on the fears of everything around you. And when it does that, people get suckered into this bullshit.
Of course they do. But you're right. But the opposite is also true. The opposite is true is if you look at too many things and think that you shouldn't be concerned about things, that's a problem too. When I like my patients, which is rare because now I don't like my job anymore, but I've told people, I say, you have to remember the opposite is true. Yeah, I'm 47 years old. I don't think that the human body was designed to live even this long. Honestly.
Really?
No, of course not.
Why do you say that? I mean, honestly, you're right, by the way. I want to double back on something real quick. You're right. I always flip a question on you somewhere along the ways. But when I do, it's because it's something I don't understand. When you got, the human body wasn't designed to live this long. And I'm like thinking, all right, explain why. Even though our longevity has gotten longer and longer over a time, the years.
See, and this is the thing too, is you always say that you like to say that I bring up medicine, but it's really not true. What happens most of the time is one of you ding-dongs always asks me a question. That's what happens all the time. It's usually not me that brings up shit. All I said was, I'm doing this stuff right now. The podcast is my priority, but I'm doing this class or whatever. But all the questions have been spurned by you. You keep asking these questions. It just happen to be medical questions.
Well,
why do I think that we're not designed for longevity? Yeah. Why do I think that we're not supposed to be around this long? Because for men in general, you get your best running speed by around the age of 25. Okay, so even at 18 and stuff like that, you're pretty fast and stuff. But if you stick with it, around 25, you're actually pretty damn fast, and you're getting really better. You're pretty good physical fitness, pretty good physical conditioning, but that drops off pretty quickly around 28. Around that time frame, and you just start to consistently go downhill from there. You lose muscle mass, all those good things. Arteries harden whether you like it or not. Bones develop calcifications whether you like it or not. You're a little bit slower. The joint spaces get a little bit more narrow. You start to lose that hair. Maybe your junk doesn't work as well.
My junk.
All those things start going downhill.
You can say duck penis, but you cannot say male penis. I don't get that.
The point is, no matter how hard you try, take a snapshot, right? If you took 15 guys your age, how many of them are in decent shape out of the 15? Probably not that many in general. And not necessarily through any fault of your own, unless they're really trying hard. Take 100 of them. Out of 100 of them, how many of them are in really very good shape? It's because through no fault of their own, just from day-to-day life and day-to-day living, working a job, being on your feet 8 hours a day on concrete, all those things just takes this toll on you. If you fall,
I like how you laughed at if you fall
at the age of 50, in comparison to if you fall at the age of 28, which one of you gets up faster and doesn't even think about it and maybe doesn't have any aches and pains? Now, I'm not talking about if you look around at all the people that are overweight and sucking ass and fat and all that other thing. I mean, if I took me at 28 and me at 47, I think it probably takes. Well, that might not be very accurate because I get up pretty fast, but I think that it hurts me a lot more to fall now than it does at 28.
Well, it depends on if I've really pissed somebody off and they've just thrown me to the ground. Do I want to get back up as quick as possible?
But bone density is different. All that stuff is different. Even if you take really good care of yourself, cellular death, bone density, muscle mass, all those things change as we get older. We're just not. I don't think we were designed for a really long haul. It's modern medicine that keeps us alive with whatever quality of life you decide you're going to have. The majority of my patients over the age of 60, most of them are on medications, or a shitload of them. That's a lot. Once in a while I'll get an 80-year-old or a 90-year-old or a 95-year-old or a 100-year-old that are only on one medication. You're like, that's fucking awesome. But that is the exception. That is not the rule. That's the exception.
So that's the thing. It's like, how do you prolong from dying? Right. I
recognize that you're all going to die and there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, yeah, if you stand in front of a bus, a bullet or something.
Yeah, we're all going to die. There's nothing we can do about that. We're all going to die.
So that brings me back to the bizarre topics that we're talking about. As if we die, do we live on in some other form? Like karma says we'll come back as something else. I'm a firm believer that we are energy, that this body that we have encases that energy. Once that body's gone, our energy can be released into the world, or do you go up to heaven or hell or purgatory or Scottsdale, Arizona? I mean,
well, you could go to Scottsdale, but the cost of living is pretty high, so you definitely better hope that you're energy and not anything else.
Okay.
But no, I would agree with you that is one concept that we are very sure of. Because energy is never created or destroyed, it is changed. That's a scientific principle. We're assuming we're correct. So yes, if you die, technically you live on because your energy changes, becomes some other form. Yes. However, if somebody loses a family member, like your wife's mother dies, the last thing that you probably want to say to your wife is, her energy went on. I know you miss your mother, but that's probably not very comforting. Or much like if my dog died, if God forbid my dog Sammy died, then somebody said to me,
not Sammy, I love Sammy. Sammy
her energy lives on. That's really not helpful at this moment in time. This moment in time, that is not that much help for me.
I miss Sammy. How is Sammy?
She's doing very well, thank you. No, at this moment in time, I really don't usually think that's, and that is it. Honestly, though, Ronz, that is what is in my head when people tell me that they lost a loved one. Because in my head, I'm like, I do believe in heaven and the afterlife. I'm just not sure if I have the correct interpretation of it. And it's a stupid reason why I believe in it, but I do know this from a scientific standpoint, assuming that we are correct as humans, that our energy does go on. So in a way, we do live, and then we rejoin with the universe. Now, I like to think that maybe there's a cool principle that heaven is actually, and I've said this before on the podcast, so people who haven't heard me say this before, it's not a unique theory. I'm not some genius that came up with this great theory. However, if you want to worship me and start a cult, of which I am the leader, I'm totally cool with it. Here's my theory. And
just make sure that you've got a good tax attorney, because a lot of these cult leaders usually go to jail on tax fraud.
Yeah, I think that they're idiots. I think that you really do need to have a good legal team, and I think you need to be honest with your cult.
Yeah.
I think that's why they fail. That, and they always become some sort of weird fucking sex weirdos. If you just establish it from the get-go and say, hey, guys, you might be thinking that this is a cult, all centered around me and this belief system that I have. And you would be right, because it does meet the definition of a cult. Now, what I'm going to say to you is this. Collectively, we could be really fucking rich, but I'm going to reap all the benefits of this richness. So what I really want is all of your money. We're going to set up a really good organization. We're going to have lawyers who are not going to scam us. We're going to have our own private army. We're going to have all kinds of good stuff. And there's not going to be any weird sex shit, because if there's any weird sex shit, you're out. There will be no pedophiles. There will be no nastiness. None of you are going to be 50-year-old.
No one's going to drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, none of you are going to be 50-year-old men marrying 14-year-old girls. None of that shit's going to happen. None of that shit. But I think if you're honest with your cult, you can make a lot of money and have a lot of fun.
Are you going to have like a Taco Tuesday or something like that?
That would be Taco Tuesday is always, it could be taco every day pretty much. I enjoy Taco Tuesday.
Cool. Now who will be allowed in your cult?
If you've got money and you're an interesting person, and I want lots of people. I don't want any type of segregation whatsoever. If you're entertaining and you're fun and you're a good person and man, you want to have a lot of fun and you understand that it's a cult, I'm all about it. Sure, please join. Here is my belief system on that. Is, as you were saying, is maybe our interpretation of heaven is actually erroneous just a little bit. Maybe we go on, but it's actually like the multiverse or a different dimension.
Now, I've heard that before, too.
That's what I said. It's not a unique theory. I don't remember where I heard it, but when I heard it, I was like, my God, that makes a lot of sense. That's why we can see ghosts. I think that's why we can see ghosts.
Okay. I like that. I like that.
And that might actually be where the idea of aliens comes from, too, is maybe that they're not in our universe. Maybe it actually is a different dimension, and that's how we see them. They slip through and they slip back, and they know how to do it and we don't.
So they would change the laws of physics. So here's another theory too, right? As long as we're doing bizarre topics, I'm taking the pro. I've actually thought about
fucked it up on how to
be a psychic surgeon. So I never finished medical school, so that's not really good.
Erase that entire front for part of the podcast, but go ahead.
No. All right. Well, the thing is, on the psychic surgery, that was a hard thing to go, but we just discovered there might have been life on Venus, right?
Isn't it strange how they've decided that just by one chemical that's in the cloud structure?
Okay. But here was my theory on that, right? If you look at the sun in its infancy, what would be the first planet to have life? That would have been Mercury. Then the sun grew, right?
Right, but it's two. Well, you mean actually it shrunk. It would say that it shrunk, right?
No, the sun hasn't gone supernova yet.
No, supernova means exploding, but doesn't it go from large to small? Isn't that how it goes?
I don't think so. No, it's just my theory. It goes from small to large. So as the sun grew, right, the first planet was Mercury, and any life form on that died off. So what would have been the next? If there was. So the next one would have been Venus. And now the sun's still growing, right? But Mercury is far enough away where it can't house any life anymore, but it can't be destroyed. It's just in that what they call almost golden zone of, or it's not going to get sucked in just yet. Then Venus would be the next planet to explode or die off, right? Now the sun has settled into its either teenage years or adult years, right? So what's going to happen now is the next planet that has life, of course, is Earth. That's where we're at right now. And when it goes supernova, the next planet will be Mars.
Well, it can't go supernova.
Why can't it?
Because supernova, that word itself means the explosion of the sun.
Yeah.
If the sun explodes, there won't be any planets.
Well, no, that's not true.
Sure it is. Our solar system won't exist anymore. It'll engulf the planets that we have.
You're right. I just looked it up. It says it doesn't have enough mass to explode a supernova.
But you're saying just because of the change of the actual radiation that's produced by the sun itself would destroy life on our planet. It wouldn't blow the planet up, but it would destroy the life.
Yeah.
So the next planet that would be habitable, or you think, in another billion years or whatever, would be
Mars.
Mars.
Of course, then there's.
But then they say there might have been life on Mars. So that would shoot your theory out.
Well, then the interesting theory that I just heard about that is that we came from Mars, right? And we came to this planet. Of course we did.
Didn't you see that? What movie was that? That was supposed to be the precursor to Alien.
Oh, Prometheus?
Yes. Of course.
No, I did not see Prometheus.
Actually, it was pretty good.
But I was in deep discussion with this person saying, if we came from Mars, why did we bring the technology with us? Right? Think about that. And they said, well, we did. No, we didn't. Well, look at the caveman paintings on the wall. I'm like, those are so primitive, you cannot call those advanced. It's like looking at the Egyptian hieroglyphics and comparing them, they're saying that they're the same thing. You just can't do that, in my opinion. And on top of that, if we came from Mars, where the hell is the Uber drivers these days, right? You figure we've got some sort of way to go back and forth, or we would have found some sort of thing about the something from Mars on this planet other than meteors.
Well, obviously we have no good answer to that question, Ronz, because that's a completely nerd question.
It is, but
why don't you try to figure that out then? Why don't you have some more nerd-like questions like that for us to actually talk about?
Well, I thought for sure we were going to get I thought it was going to be you, me, Tremonti, the Swan, and the Rick or somewhere else on there.
No, so you're not okay with just us? Just us?
Oh, I'm fantastic with us, right? It's just
no. Why don't you come up with those nerd questions for last time so that you and I can? Because here's the thing, right?
Okay, I can.
When you try to find, this is what I've realized as an adult. You know how when you're a kid in high school or whatever, as you grow up, and there's these people that are supposed to be cool, and then there's people that are nerds or geeks or whatever. And of course, I was not cool, so I would aspire to be cool. But now, try to find anybody that you think is cool, because to me, I can't think of anybody that fits that bill. Everybody that I encounter from the time I've become an adult, really, even if they were cool in high school, they all seem like nerds and geeks to me now.
Okay.
So when I think about us doing this podcast and talking about these, what I consider nerd topics, which is fun because that's what I like to talk about. Sometimes I think what would really be fun is to have somebody who's really cool on the podcast to look at us like we're fucking morons and ask us questions that a cool person would ask nerds and geeks, because obviously they don't think like us, and they were like, what? Why is this person even talking about this? But because all these years of being an adult, I've never encountered anybody that I felt that actually fit that bill of being cool like they did when I was a kid. So in other words, what I'm saying is nobody's actually cool at all.
Well,
they're just cool in a different way.
Well, I guess that's why I'm here. I always thought that when I was a kid, I never saw that many cool people, right? I was a victim of being bullied. I really was. And when we got older,
I also don't think that makes me a better person. So people who say that, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, go fuck yourself on that.
People who say that, I'm like, you really weren't bullied.
Yeah, you don't understand.
I have PTSD from it, so I don't think that the people who say that, I'm like, I just want to fucking punch them in the taint, honestly. But go ahead.
I thought it would have been the throat. So
simultaneous taint and throat punch.
I didn't know that many people that were cool that wouldn't turn around and stab you in the back. In fact, to your PSTD, I still don't trust a lot of people because of situations like that. Now, that's a personal thing on me. I'm just letting that out there, right? But if I were to go back and look for the cool people, I don't know that many. I know maybe one teacher, if that. And once again, I'm a drop in the bucket of how many thousands of students they've taught. Would they remember me? I doubt it. Would they know my family? Probably, but I don't know.
Well, I guess that what classifies somebody as cool changes, I guess. I don't know. Who knows?
Now, as an adult,
I'm just saying that I was saying that nobody I know as an adult fits that bill of what was considered cool when I was a kid.
Oh.
And even if they did, I probably think I wouldn't find them interesting at all.
Now, when I'm an adult, I know some really cool people. I really do. You.
Well, cool to you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, that's all that matters to me.
You're exactly right. That's what I'm saying. When I sit there and think about the topics that we talk about, I'm like, I enjoy it because to me, they're like nerdy topics or geeky topics or whatever, because that's all fun for us. I think it would be fun to have somebody on the podcast that thinks that we're complete morons and has no idea why we find any of this interesting. That might be a little bit fun.
Actually, when I asked a couple of our friends, they've listened to our podcast.
You keep saying that. I don't have any friends, but
yeah, you do. Believe it or not, you have when I asked him to listen to the last week's podcast, because I asked him to listen to it, and I said, "Did you listen to it?" Yeah. I said, "Do you have any notes for me?" All right, and they're like, "Notes? No. Just tell me what you think, okay?" And I'm like, "Okay." Well, last week's podcast, they came up to me and they said, "What's the Beaveman's obsession with duck penises?" And I'm like, "I don't know." But I also walked into the dojo a previous week, and they're like, "Whoa, the Ronz is here. To defeat the Ronz, all you need is camouflage netting." That was it. That was the brunt of about a week, maybe 2 weeks at the dojo when I walked in. That was the topic sometimes. And now I'm using it against them. It's like, if you want to defeat me, you don't have to block or kick. Just throw some camouflage netting. It'll render me useless with buttons.
Yeah, that most likely will happen, actually. So, yeah, I think that maybe it's just that I don't find people cool unless they're geeky. My definition. But you're right. Whatever our definition of cool is all that matters, honestly.
So in this modern day and age of all the people that we know, who would you consider cool? I mean, you hang out with some of the same people I do, or you run in the same circles that I do, right? In one circle. So who would you consider cool, right? Once again, the people I wanted for the podcast, you're like, how are we going to get those people? I still don't know. But if I could get them, right, those are the cool people you want, right? Like Kevin Smith and Jack Black. And once again, I won't mention the singer that you told me not to mention because you wouldn't know what to ask him. I'm like,
no, I would know what to ask him. No, you have to. They have to be like your similar mindset. That's why I say if you're ever going to be on the podcast, you would have to listen to the podcast so that you're not shocked or surprised by anything that we do. And you have to play along. Who wants to have a podcast guest who's just sitting there like a stump and maybe either they're even horrified by the shit that we say? That would be totally horrible. That's why, when you talk about, well, who do you consider cool or who would be on the podcast? I can think of people that would do very well on our podcast, and I can think of people that would not do well on our podcast.
Well, those who don't do well on our podcast, sometimes I think that's the people we should shoot for, because they would be the ones that I think, in my opinion, would probably be the most challenging to see how we can handle it.
Yeah, it's challenging, but again, last thing you want is a bunch of dead air while you're trying to get that other person to interact.
Yeah,
let me use Tremonde as an example.
Okay.
Tremonde is very good on the podcast. I'm not saying he can't do it by himself, but if you're listening, Tremonde, which you should, because you should listen to your podcast.
Speaking of which, why isn't he here?
He's doing the Rona. Anyway, Tremonde is good on the podcast specifically if it's not just Tremonde with like me. So Tremonde is very good on the podcast because you can't expect Tremonde to fire from the hip right away. He likes to he's very contemplative, or he likes to think things through. And sometimes when Tremonde did the podcast the first time, it was just me and him, and he did very well because I was interviewing him basically, so he got to talk about himself, but I had to go through and edit it because I had to take out all those blocks of time where Tremonde was thinking and wasn't saying anything, and I would just sit there. And it seems like it's a really long time, but it may only be like maybe 2 seconds, and you can't let it go 5. 5 seconds is completely dead air, so you have to go through and edit everything. So Tremonde has gotten better and better and better, but Tremonde, as you know, you're like, sometimes you can tell he's thinking about stuff, and you're just trying to draw him in. You're like, say something, motherfucker, speak. So you actually just have to stop and say, Tremonde, say something, because I can tell you want to say something, but you're thinking too long. And even then, when he's been thinking that whole time, you're like, okay, he's had plenty of time to think about it. I'm going to hit him. He'll still pause for like 3 seconds before he says anything. But he's very good to have it, so you just have to keep bringing him in. Yeah, the difference, of course, is you don't know how people are going to react when you do the podcast unless they've kind of listened to it, because we have questions that we would just want to ask just to be stupid.
Yeah, and I think the first time I met Rick, the Woodman, right, who I thought was awesome, because when we did the first meeting of everybody there, and I was sitting next to him, and he said, and we all introduced ourselves. He's like, "You don't know me. Who are you people?" And I thought, this is going to work out great. He's going to play so well. And then what does he do? He gets a freaking job.
Well, he's had the same job. That's the same job he's had. It's just he's on the road a lot. And I keep trying to get him. What I would like him to do, and this is dragging out our podcast, but what I'd like him to do is, because he's on the road a lot, well, he has a cell phone. All he would have to do is do like a 5-minute thing here or there, just his thoughts on just different stuff. And we can always put that out as just an extra podcast, like, Rick's thoughts on this or whatever. And that would be fun to do. And that would be just him as being a part of the podcast and being able to do that stuff. And we could even play it at the beginning of one of ours while we listen to it, and we can comment on what he said. So it's not anything that would be hard for him to do. He has an iPhone. He could do that and upload it to cloud, and I can pull it off.
Yeah, I like that. In fact, I think I've been knocking that around too. I like that idea.
And I encourage all the squad members to do that. I'm like, you don't have to wait for me to do something. I mean, I don't want it to be something great and horribly seditious. I think it should probably be sent to me first before it happens. I mean, if you're gonna do an advertisement promoting the Trump campaign, I'm not gonna let it get posted. It ain't getting posted.
So your use of the lexicon is just outrageously great, right? I like the word salacious or seditious or whatever it was. I can't even say it anymore. I
don't think I said delicious. I'm pretty sure I didn't say delicious.
Something like that. Right.
All right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up with a advertisement because.
Hold on. I got to get my. Okay.
We'll wrap it up with an advertisement here. Scars and Stripes Coffee empowers veterans to start their own e-commerce business. Let me also say that if you order Scars and Stripes Coffee, you probably won't get a discount by mentioning the Slaptail Squad. But we do this to support a couple of our companies that we really like out there. Every product sold empowers a veteran through commission or performance-based bonus, and members of this podcast have enjoyed Scars and Stripes Coffee specifically.
I have not enjoyed it yet. I would like some.
If you would just hit her up, I'm sure she would send you some coffee.
All right.
Members of this, you would have to mention that you are from, the Slaptail Squad. It would probably be a good idea to get you some coffee. I'm sure she'll send you a sample of coffee.
Okay. All right.
Purchasing coffee and merchandise directly supports veteran entrepreneurs like friend of the show, Carrie, not to be confused with Ronz's Carrie. Her personal mission is to spread veteran suicide awareness so that America can see that veterans need their help now more than ever. She wants people to know that this is much bigger than a cup of coffee, and buying a couple of bags of coffee can save lives. So check it out. Buy some coffee and merch. Support awareness of veteran suicide and the Military Veterans Crisis Line at 1-800-273-8255. Press 1. Don't know why you'd have to make it so fucking complicated. And you can find her at www.facebook.com/carriesbrew, and of course on Instagram at carries_brew. And of course, go out there. It's getting cold, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't go buy your silkies from Sunga Life, because even during the dead of winter, if it's warm in your house, the thighs can still be out.
Right. By the way, thank you for posting that kind of collage of thigh pictures, because we were all looking at them, and my lovely wife, right, mentioned like, I know those thighs, because that was the one where I was down at South Haven.
Whose thighs was she looking at when she said that? Maybe she wasn't looking at your thighs when she said that.
That could have been the case, but I think it wasn't. But I like that, right? Because I have awesome looking thighs in shorts.
Right. So you need to put that on the website. You need to put that on the website so that people can look and vote on who has the best thighs.
Thighs out, skies out.
Yeah. Sunga Life people. If you're listening, people from Sunga Life, veteran-owned business by a Navy SEAL. If you're listening, please send Tremonde, the Ronz, and Rick a pair of Ranger Silkies, and so that they can enjoy them, and they can also promote Sunga Life, and they can live that Sunga Life. They can live that silky life that the Swan and I so enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, the way you guys wear them, I mean,
I'm wearing a pair right now. I was getting ready to go work out.
Yeah, I got your message. Like, I'm waiting for you and you're waiting for me. I'm like, what the hell? I thought he was going to.
You weren't lit up online. I didn't see the little green.
Yeah, that's why. I was online. I gotten like I mentioned, I was on the road, and then I got home and everything got set up. I'm like, I'm here. But that's the way it goes.
Technology. All right. Well, I guess I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to say thanks for listening. It's good to have all of you out there in the listening audience.
Big shout out to Squeegee Snot if they're still listening. We definitely want them on if we can get them on.
Do they listen? You said if they're still listening. Do they listen?
Well, then again, I've also mentioned Jack Black and Jason Mewes and Kyle Glass and Kevin Smith. And Weird Al.
Let's throw Mark Maron in there. Let's throw the last podcast on the left. If you're listening,
get them on. What about Skylar Beavers and RJ Lawson? Let's get them in there too. Right?
Yeah. All right. Well, adios, fuckos.
And from the Ronz, and Ronz, you've got the last word. Hey, be good to yourself.